Welcome everyone. In this video, we're going to go over my take on the BizBunk deck. This is one of the strongest decks in the game right now, if not the strongest deck. At the end of Season 0, 4 of the top 8 players primarily use this deck to close out and finish to get their ranking. Now, this deck plays very differently than other decks because it's not an aggressive deck, it's not a mid-range deck, but it's a combo deck. So the whole deck revolves around executing a combo where Bizmo, the PhD candidate, is a centerpiece. In this video, we're going to first talk through how the deck is constructed, going over each card in it and the role of that card. We're going to also go through the tech cards. So we'll talk about first the core cards and then the tech cards, as well as some budget substitutions. Then we're going to go through the strategy of the deck, including how to mulligan for it. After that, we're going to play a few games to see the deck in action. All right, let's jump in. So the first card that we need in this deck is Bizmo, right? This is the namesake of the deck, and what Bizmo says is when this penguin enters the huddle, if you have no cards in your deck, you win the game. So basically, the point of this deck is to get no cards in your deck, and then have a Bizmo in your hand, and then play Bizmo. So that brings the next question: how do we get no cards in our deck? And so this deck basically runs two cycling engines. The first one is AscendingPenguin. So what AscendingPenguin says is whenever a penguin enters your huddle, ice the top card of your deck equal to half of that penguin's vibe rounded up. So basically, if you have an ascending penguin on the board, if you play a big penguin, let's say you play a 10 vibe penguin, you would ice 5 cards. And since your deck only has 52 cards to start, you probably naturally draw 15 in your deck. With Ascending Penguin, it's pretty easy to go through your deck really fast. Then there's also a specific combo with Bunkus that we'll talk about later that can really basically just wipe out large portions of your deck all at once. So Cycle Engine 1, or I guess Icing Engine 1, is Ascending Penguin. The second cycle engine is, or icing engine, is PenguinWhoosOK. So PenguinWhoosOK says whenever you draw a card, choose a player, ice the top card of your deck. Now, this works really well for two reasons. So first of all, right, every time you draw a card, you ice a card. But then the second reason is that drawing a card also removes a card from your deck, right? So like every card you draw now is basically the equivalent of removing 2 cards from your deck. So if we have a lot of cheap draw in our deck with PenguinWhoosOK on the board, you can also really run through your deck really fast. So when you play the game, you can actually win without both of these cards. So you can win with just Ascending Penguin or with just PenguinWhoosOK. Usually you'll need maybe 2 or 3 copies total of these engine cards, but the deck is flexible enough that you don't really need one or the other. Next, let's talk about the cards that support the engines. So we'll start with Ascending Penguin. So there are 4 cards that are really strong with it. So the first one is Bashful Swordsman Penguin. So Bashful Swordsman Penguin is basically ridiculously statted for its cost. So it's 3 fish and it's 14 vibe. So with an Ascending Penguin, that's 7 cards you can ice. Or with 2 Ascending Penguins, that's 14. And the other really nice thing about Bashful Swordsman is that that it basically allows you to easily win a vibe check, which if you're going for the final combo turn, you want to usually win the vibe check because then you have initiative on that final turn. And say your opponent has a misplace, which could disrupt your combo. If you go first, you play Bashful Swordsman, you get initiative, and then you just win the game and they don't have a chance to interact. So this is definitely a 4 of in the deck. The other thing that Bashful Swordsman can do is it can act as removal, right? So if they have a really big penguin, you can play Bashful Swordsman in order to remove it. Now, one of the big downsides of Bashful Swordsman is, right, it generally ends up icing itself. But in this deck, that doesn't really matter because you almost never win by having 15 penguins on the board. You're almost always winning with a Bizmo win condition. The second card that goes really well is Penguin Who Breaks the Fourth Wall. And so what this says is you can't play this penguin from your hand, playable from the ice by icing 2 rods you control, in addition to paying its fish cost. And it's 2 fish for 9 vibe. So that will ice 5 cards. So one of the really nice things about this is because you're icing so many cards, you will you'll always have this in your, or very frequently have this in your ice. And so you don't even need to draw it. We're only going to play 2 copies of it because I find that you almost always have it in your ice by the time you need it. Now, the cost of icing two additional rods to pay the cost can be a bit burdensome because you usually need 6 rods in order to play the final combo. But again, you're not trying to get to 15 cards. So if you just, you know, I find that this card is not really that strong in the deck, but there are definitely times it's useful. So it definitely deserves to have 2 slots. The final card that works well with Ascending Penguin is Bunkus. Now, what Bunkus says is playable from ice. As you play Bunkus, put any number of cards from your ice on the bottom of your deck to reduce Bunkus's cost by that amount. Bunkus's vibe is twice the number of penguin cards in your ice. Now, we're going to talk a lot more about Bunkus in the strategy section, where we're going to talk about exactly how that like finishing combo is structured. But at a high level, right, you can basically play Bunkus out for free if you have enough cards in your ice. And then, right, you'll put cards, you'll basically then just have a bunch of penguins in your ice. So let's say you had then still 15 penguins left in your ice. Bunkus would then have 30 vibe. So Ascending would ice 15 cards. And so then you basically put 12 cards on the bottom of your deck, you ice 15 cards, and then you just kind of keep repeating this cycle. So we'll talk much more about how this combo works in the strategy section, but just know that Bunkus is very critical for this deck because of how it works with Ascending Penguin. The other nice thing about Bunkus is it's also part of the alternative win condition, which is basically just to get 4 big Bunkus on the board. And we'll talk about that as well in the strategy section. All right, that does it for the cards that really work well with Ascending Penguin. So now let's talk about Penguin Who's Okay. So the first card that goes well with Penguin Who's Okay is going to be Study at Night. Now, Study at Night basically just says draw 2 cards and ice 2 cards from your hand. So with Penguin Who's Okay, this basically just says draw 2 cards and ice 4 cards. And so, well, yeah, ice 2 cards from your hand and 2 cards from the top of your deck. So for 1 purple Pudge, you can really get through your deck quickly. Also, the nice thing about Study at Night is it really helps you like find the missing combo pieces, because in order to finish the game, you need to have a certain set of cards in your hand, and Study at Night helps you quickly filter. One of the disadvantages of Study at Night is it is card disadvantage, because you basically are spending 1 card to get nothing. But again, this deck does not care about card advantage. You typically end up winning the game with only, 6 or 7 cards total. So it's really about just burning down your card advantage to finish out on the combo. The next card is BrainyPenguin, which is basically just like Study at Night. Same effect, but it's on a penguin body. So the nice thing about BrainyPenguin is that, right, this deck does need a small amount of purple Pudge in order to place things like Study at Night. So BrainyPenguin is good because it does provide you that Pudge, and it's nice because you can use your fish resource instead of your Pudge resource. And then the last card is Overwhelm with Knowledge. So Overwhelm with Knowledge basically lets you draw a card. So it's just 1 purple Pudge, draw a card. And then if it's in your ice, which it often ends up because you're icing so many cards from your deck, you can ice a rod you control in order to draw a card for no cost. So again, this is another reason you need Brainy Penguin, is in order to play Overwhelm with Knowledge. Um, you need to be careful with this card because it is good at drawing additional cards, but you end up putting it back in your deck. So, but if you have a Penguin Who's Okay on the board, right, you do put 1 card back in your deck, but then you ice a card from the top of your deck. And if you have 2 Penguin Who's Okay, you're actually making progress. So, Overwhelm with Knowledge is another one of those cards that really just helps you cycle through your deck quickly in order to get your like combo assembled. Next, we're going to talk about a card that has a very special place in this deck, which is What. So, what does is it just says when this card is put in your ice the top card of your deck. So, from one hand, it's just like an icing accelerator, because what it basically does is you'll be icing when you ice a card. If it happens to be what, then you can you just ice another card. So it really kind of makes it that you're playing with a 48 card deck, which really helps because you're just trying to ice your deck as fast as possible. So it's kind of like a 10% reduction of your deck, or maybe like not quite 10%, maybe like 8%. And this deck often wins like the turn before your opponent would win. So this can really make a difference. The other really important role that what does is it resets the timer. So whenever you're doing a big bunkus turn, right, just playing a bunkus on its own from your ice doesn't reset the timer, but icing a what does. So you want to make sure to have enough what's in your deck so that you can keep getting these timer resets. Plus, we'll talk more about the combo, but what really enables you to go off with a smaller amount of cards in your ice. So if you weren't playing what, I think you'd need like maybe 28, 29 cards in your ice in order to finish the game. Whereas with what, you can probably get away with like 24 to 26. The other thing to keep in mind with what is there are multiple ways in order to get what into to trigger, you can either discard it with a BrainyPenguin or a StudyAllNight. You can ice it from a rod with a penguin who breaks the fourth wall or overwhelm with knowledge, or you can just directly ice it from your deck, like with AscendingPenguin or PenguinWhoSOK. So this card is very versatile in this deck. And so yeah, this is of all the purple decks, I find that this is the first one that is really able to utilize this card. The last card that we're going to play two of is Purple Mega Penguin. So what Mega Penguin says is, as an additional cost to play this penguin, ice a penguin in your huddle. When this penguin enters the huddle, you may pick a card in your ice and put it in your hand. So the condition again of icing a penguin in your huddle is pretty irrelevant in this deck. There's usually like a brainy penguin sitting around or something else that's not that important. And the ability to take a card from your ice, which will be very full, and put it in your hand is really powerful because, again, you're trying to assemble this combo in your hand. And so you'll generally be missing one piece of the combo. And so Purple Mega Penguin allows you to find that missing piece. So we only run two of that because it is a very expensive card at 5 fish. So that completes the core cards. So I think to play this deck, this is really the 40 cards you definitely need to be playing. Now, I have seen people take what down to even 2 and StudyAllNight down to 3 maybe. So I have seen people playing lists like this. Personally, I don't think this is right. Like, I really think you want to go for the hyper cycle thing and you want to have 4 of each. But if you're really trying to tech for specific matchups, I think you could justify kind of trimming on those 2 cards. So now let's talk about the tech cards. So first, I'm going to talk about all the tech cards that I actually play in the deck. And then, right, but again, it's meta dependent. So there is a chance that this will swap over time. But then I'm also going to talk through all the other tech cards that are, I've seen other people playing and that I've tried myself that in certain situations can be very good. So the first one is GotEm. So GotEm is just such a powerful removal card, right? This deck currently runs no removal. And in the mirror matchup, it's absolutely critical because you need to remove your opponent's Ascending Penguin and PenguinWhoosOK. And against yellow, it's also super good. But then the other card that GotEm just is absolutely necessary for is PopcornPenguin. This deck has no answer to PopcornPenguin, and a PopcornPenguin basically removes both of your icing engines. So personally, I was debating not even putting this as a tech card and just saying it's standard, but I could understand the reasoning why. Like, if the meta really changes, maybe you could not play all 4 GotEm. So then the card that kind of is a mirror to GotEm is NotaRodAnymore. So what NotaRodAnymore says is, right, you can only play this action as a rod, right? Flip this card and boost the vibe of a penguin by 2 for the rest of the cycle. So what is really amazing about NotaRodAnymore is that it can basically counter a GotEm. So, right, very often people play GotEm specifically to do well against this deck. And so if they play GotEm, you can save your key cycling engines with NotaRodAnymore. So again, I personally believe that this is also pretty much an auto include 4 of, just because I really like playing this deck in that like hyper cycle mode where it's really all about the combo and getting the combo off as quickly as possible. But I could see the argument that people would have for saying like, I really want to play this a little slower, a little more control-y. And in that world, I could see that you don't really need NotaRodAnymore. So again, I consider it pretty core, but I'm putting it in the tech cards because there have been people that have had success without it. The next card is Adventure Squad. So this deck right now, without Adventure Squad, just hard loses to a what's it called? To a misplace. So let me put 2 of these in and then let me show you misplace. So what misplace says is, when this penguin enters the huddle, pick a card from your opponent's ice. Cards with the same name can't be played. So if your opponent plays a misplace and they pick either Bizmo or Bunkus, you basically lose the game because there's nothing you can do at that point. I mean, there's like some ways you can get around it, but in general, it's very difficult to win from there. And so Adventure Squad is just right. Adventure Squad is the purple removal that just allows you to ice the misplace. And so I find this is, you need at least 2 copies just because otherwise you auto lose. I have seen people play Have a Philosophical Debate. So Have a Philosophical Debate is an alternative in the removal slot. I think one thing that's nice about this is you can put cards back in your deck. So like, let's say that you're missing combo pieces, but all 4 are in your ice. You could play this card to get them back so you can draw them. However, right, putting cards back in your deck is the exact opposite of what you're trying to do with your win condition. So because of that, I really don't like playing this card. I want to make it work because it's one of my favorite cards in the game. But yeah, so far I really find that just Adventure Squad is better. That being said, Have a Philosophical Debate is also much better at removing popcorn. So you could also say like, hey, I'm going to run 2 of each or something like that. Like I think this deck could definitely be fine with up to 4 pieces of removal. The final tech card that I run in my list is Popcorn Penguin. So Popcorn Penguin is really, really good in the mirror, and it's really, really good against yellow. So just running 2 of that, and those are two tough matchups for this deck. So running 2 of those really helps in those matchups. So this is kind of the list that I'm running. I think if there's a lot of yellow on the ladder, Popcorn definitely wants to be pushed up to 3. So this is then I guess where you could maybe say, okay, I'm gonna put what down to 3, or maybe not a raw down to 3. I'm not really sure exactly the right way. So you'll have to play with it to figure out what you're comfortable with. So let's also talk about some tech cards that can be used that I don't really think are that great, but other people play. The first one is Inspiring Story. So Inspiring Story kind of does the same thing as Not a Rod Anymore, where it basically protects you against GotEm, but it also protects you against popcorn. So right, Not a Rod Anymore can't protect you against popcorn, and popcorn is very devastating for this deck. So, and also it works really well with popcorn. So right, I could see the world where you would run a list that's like 4 inspiring, 4 popcorn, maybe no, not a rod, and maybe one less what, and I don't know, one less study at night or something. So something like this is definitely a valid list to play as well. This is more of the, on the mid-rangey side, so I think it's something to consider depending on what type of decks you're playing and what your playstyle is. The other card that I see people play is What a Twist. So what a twist does, right, is say, yeah, when you can basically unflop a penguin, and this is really really useful against green control when they're trying to win the game with everyone stay clam, or against caffeine green mega penguin. Now I don't see a lot of caffeine green mega penguin on the ladder right now, and against green control, I find that just really hyper focusing on your win condition is better. That being said, depending on how the meta shifts, I could definitely see putting a What a Twist or 2 in there because especially because you have Bunkus on the like once you've played a Bunkus, you can you end up with a very large penguin you can target with this. Let's talk quickly about some budget substitutions. So the one card that is something that is a I didn't talk about yet is Unmasked Penguin. So Unmasked Penguin is kind of like can produce some pudge. It's a it can go okay with it ascending penguin. So if you're really missing cards, I've definitely seen people play this. I don't think it's good. And the reason for that is just it doesn't do anything. Like just playing a 3/6 with no abilities just seems like a waste. And I just feel like there's better cards. However, it's a common and you should have access to it. So if you're going through the deck and you really don't have all the cards, but you're still trying to make it work, then this could be a card you could slot in. So let's talk about the cards in the deck that are rares and epics and just see how important they are. Bashful Swordsman, right? This is unmasked, could swap these out. It's not going to be as good, but this card is not like absolutely critical to the game plan. BrainyPenguin, again, I think you could get away with just 2 of these because you have Study at Night as well, right? So if you're cutting BrainyPenguin, make sure to full play Study at Night. Bunkus, again, Bunkus is very critical. So, I think you need at least 3 copies. Maybe you could get away with 2, but at that point, you're really going to be playing a different type of deck than this because it's so key part of the final combo. Penguin Who Breaks the Fourth Wall, you could definitely go up to 4 copies of this, but again, I really don't think you need more than 2. GotEm and NotaRodAnymore are both rares, but they're tech cards, so you don't really need those. Popcorn Penguin is also a tech card, so you don't really need that. What, again, you need at least 2 Whats for the timer reset functionality. So, and Purple Mega Penguin, again, you could get away with 0 copies of this. So, basically, talking through it, this is a very expensive deck in terms of how many rares and epics there are, and they're all pretty critical to how the deck works. So, overall, I would say you can definitely get away with missing a card or 2 here or there. But if you only have like 1 or 2 copies of each of the rare cards, I think it's going to be very difficult to make this deck work. Now let's talk about the mulligans. So this deck is actually so easy to mulligan for. I have never am I going to have a more straightforward mulligan guide. Basically, there's 3 cards you want, and you will hard mulligan for them, and you will always throw away everything else, and you will only keep those 3 cards. I think that is PenguinWhoosOK, which is the one engine, AscendingPenguin, which is the other engine, and then BrainyPenguin, just because BrainyPenguin combos with PenguinWhoosOK, and it's an early drop, and it helps you cycle through your deck. Now, I guess I was a little too extreme. I could see a world if I had a hand of like PenguinWhoosOK, PenguinWhoosOK, AscendingPenguin, NotaRodAnymore. I would keep the NotaRodAnymore. So I would maybe keep a NotaRodAnymore if I already have like 2 to 3 of the engine cards. So why do we mulligan so aggressively? Like, why wouldn't we keep a GotEm? And the reason for that is the engines are so important to the deck. I would rather take that additional shot at drawing another copy of the engine. And the removal, you don't even really want to be using the removal like that early. It's more for emergencies. And this deck has so much cycle that you'll run into more removal, like another GotEm over time. So I personally, anyway, that's how I mulligan. Maybe other people disagree with me, but I just think that, right, it's a combo deck. You need to be getting your deck iced as quickly as possible. And so you just need a hard go for that. Now let's talk about the strategy a little bit. So, how does this deck work? So, right, in the early game, we've kind of covered this a lot already. You basically want to get your engine cards down, so your PenguinWhoosOK and your AscendingPenguin, and then you basically just want to ice your deck. So, at the beginning of the game, it's all just about doing whatever you can to ice your deck as fast as possible. And you really want to get your deck to have maybe, let's say, 25 to 28 cards in the ice. Once you have that condition set, so you say you have 25 to 28 cards in your ice, and you at the same time want to assemble in your hand one Ascending Penguin and one Bizmo PhD candidate. So if you have that, and you need to have 6 rods on the board, or well, you really need 5 because you can play a rod, then you can basically do the combo. And the way the combo works is you basically play Ascending Penguin. So now will have 2 rods remaining open. And then you'll go to your ice and you will play a bunkus. So let's just for this example, let's say that we have 28 cards in our ice. So when we have 28 cards in our ice, we'll play bunkus, and so that will remove 12 cards from our ice, leaving 16 cards in our ice. And so then when bunkus gets played with the ascending penguin, you then basically will get to ice 16 cards. So you'll put 12 cards in your deck, and then you ice 16 cards out of your deck. So the net effect is you ice 4 cards from your deck. And then you have another bunkus in your ice, and you repeat this. And then you repeat it, and then you repeat it, and then you have no cards left in your deck, and then you play the BizmoPhDCandidate. And but one other thing to keep in mind is basically every time you have a what, it makes it even faster because those, like, so let's say that you send your what's back into your ice. Then when they get iced by the ascending penguin, you actually remove an extra card. So then you would actually be, instead of icing a net of 4 cards each time you do a bunkus, you would be doing 8 cards each time. So that's kind of how it works, the combo. And one thing that's very important is that you're going to have very little time to do the combo because the timer is fast. And so you really need to know exactly what order to send cards in. So whenever you're doing the combo, the first thing you want to do is always select your what's because I think it's the way it works or the way it should work is that whatever cards you click first should go at the top. And so you basically want to put your what's at the top. So you go to your ice, you quickly select all your what's, and then you select all of your action cards. And then after that, if you have no action cards left in your deck, then you select the penguins. And the reason for that is right, you want as many penguins in your ice as possible in order to have the maximum bunkus vibe, which will then result in icing the maximum cards in your deck. So that's kind of how the combo works. And typically, you actually only need to do like 2 or 3 bunkuses in order to finish it. And especially something else that can happen is you can actually end up with 2 ascending penguins on the board. And once you have that, it's extremely easy to ice your deck. And often you don't even need bunkus. In that case, if you have 2 ascending penguins, like a bashful swordsman, will usually be enough to just get you over the finish line. So don't be too narrowed in on the combo. I think I only do it maybe 1 out of every 2 games. Like the rest of the time, I just end up icing my deck through other combinations of PenguinWhoosOK and just ascending penguin with other cards. Um, let's talk a little bit too. There's one alternative win condition, which I end up using maybe 1 out of 10 games or 1 out of 15 games. So it's not really that common, but in certain games, right, always be on the lookout for this line, which is basically you just get a bunch of bunkus on the board. So when you do this, you have to be really careful not to deck yourself because you can get in a situation where, right, you have too little cards in your deck at the end of your turn and then you end up losing the game. So when you go for this line of playing just like 4 big bunkus on the board, you often want to then send back a combination of penguins and actions in order to keep the bunkuses at maybe, a size of like 20 or something like that. And so like, right, if you get 4 big bunkus on a board, very few decks have a good way to dealing with that. Also, like, even if they have like some sort of board clear, you can often recover because this deck is really good from playing from the ice. So there are also a few other win conditions that you should keep an eye out for. If you're playing the mirror, sometimes you can win by icing your opponent. So, right, I've done this a few times where you have like 2 penguin okay who's okay on the board. They're setting up for their kill turn, and then you play Brainy Penguin and ice them, and actually they end up losing the game. So that's something that happens very rarely, but it's something to keep an eye out for. Then there's also like sometimes Penguin who breaks a fourth wall is enough, like big enough. So against certain decks, you can win like that as well. Or even with Bashful Swordsman. The last thing we're going to talk about is how to counter this deck. So there are basically 2 cards that are super strong against this deck. So we already talked about Misplace. So, right, what Misplace does is, right, prevents a card from getting played. So the way you counter the counter of Misplace is if they play Misplace, you have to get your removal. So whenever I'm playing a deck that I think is running Misplace, I will always keep my Adventure Squads in my hand in order to kind of deal with that. And typically the decks that play Misplace are any blue deck or Caffeine Mega Penguin. The other card that's really strong is Silent Snow Globe, because what Silent Snow Globe says is all penguins lose all abilities. You can't play additional penguins as long as this relic remains in play. So if your opponent plays Silent Snow Globe, you can still play penguins, but they can't. And so what Silent Snow Globe does is it basically makes Bunkus useless because Bunkus basically becomes 0 vibe and then gets iced. And then the other thing that Silent Snow Globe does is it makes Bizmo not work. So overall, it's yeah, Silent Snow Globe. Oh, and Ascending Penguin and Penguin Who's Okay don't work. Actually, I'm not sure if it makes Bizmo not work. That's actually a good question because Bizmo's ability triggers on entering the huddle. So I don't actually know how that interaction works. People don't usually play Snow Globe, so but either way, even if Bizmo were to work, then it would be really hard to even get rid of your entire deck because none of your other penguins work. However, if they play a Snow Globe, you have one trick up your sleeve, which is Bashful Swordsman Penguin. Because if they play a Snow Globe, your Bashful Swordsman Penguin is basically a 14 vibe penguin with no downside. So the way you play around Snow Globe is you need your removal because you'll need your adventure squad to remove whatever big penguins they have, and then you play Bashful Swordsman. But it's tough. Like Snow Globe is definitely difficult for this deck to play around. However, very few people run it. Although when this deck was really popular on the ladder, I did notice more and more people playing Snow Globes. All right, that completes my deck overview. So now let's jump into some games. All right, jumping into the first game, let's take a look at our mulligan. So in our mulligan, right, we have Penguin Who's Okay, which is great because that's one of our engines. And we have Brainy Penguin, which combos really good with Penguin Who's Okay. So we definitely get rid of the 2 Bismos. And so then the question, right, this is what I was talking about earlier, which is like, do we keep what? Because what is a great card to discard with Brainy Penguin. But I would rather discard what and have a chance at getting a second Penguin Who's Okay, or maybe even an Ascending Penguin. So, right, because if I discard what now, I basically get 2 draws at this other card because first I get a draw now, and then I get a draw by cycling the second card with Brainy Penguin. And look at that, we got a second Penguin Who's Okay. So this is a really great hand because we have double Penguin Who's Okay, which is then going to go into Brainy Penguin. There's a chance that I'll play the Brainy Penguin on turn 3. We'll kind of see how the game rolls out. So yeah, so okay, so overall, this is a really good hand. So let's see what they do. Okay, so perfect. We got a GotEm, which will be great as a rod. And then yeah, so then we'll pass. And so let's see. Okay, so we're definitely gonna go Penguin Who's Okay on turn 2. And then there's a chance that they're gonna have removal for it. So this is where NotaRodAnymore would be really good. Because it could protect our Penguin Who's Okay. But that's okay. So yeah, let's just see how things develop. Okay, so we will have all right, so we got a Bismo. So for our rod, I think we'll play the purple Mega Penguin because I don't think we really need the Bismo. Yeah, it's a little or yeah, we could play the Bismo as a rod, but I think we'll play the Mega Penguin for now, just because. Yeah, no, no. I guess this is the first Bismo we've seen, so I think we'll play that as the rod. All right, so we play the Who's Okay, which will be a good yeah. So that's a good start. And let's see. So let's see if they let it survive. Okay, if they let it survive. So if they don't have removal for one, they probably won't have removal for two. And they're not even going to be able to play popcorn this turn. So I think we can definitely go into playing the second one just to try to really milk the Brainy Penguin. So we'll be playing the purple Mega Penguin as the rod. I'm holding on to the popcorn penguin. And again, so we drew an ascending penguin. So we definitely want to save that. Um, We'll play the penguin who's okay this turn, just so that we can have the well, I guess I didn't know if I need to play a rod, because one of the things is with Brainy Penguin, we'll need to have two cards to discard. But we're gonna then that's a nice thing about Overwhelm with Knowledge in this situation, is we can actually draw two cards with it. So we'll play Overwhelm with Knowledge, and we'll pull one of our Bismos out. So we have two Bismos in our ice. So there's only two left in our deck. So the reason we pull one out is just so that with Bunkus, we might end up cycling one into our ice. All right, so we got a Bunkus. So that's perfect because that'll be a good card to discard with Brainy. Okay, so we see the what triggered. So overall, things are still looking good. So we can definitely play the popcorn as a rod. And the reason for that is we're playing green, and green, green doesn't really have a lot of popcorn targets. So, oh, and then we have fourth wall. So fourth wall is perfect too, because we needed two things to discard with Brainy. So I think we'll play Brainy first. And the reason we play Brainy first is, let's say we drew a NotaRodAnymore or something like that. In that case, we would want to play the Brainy first, like before playing the popcorn as a rod. So we'll do Brainy first, then we'll discard the two cards that need to be playable from the ice. So this is actually perfect. Okay, so I'm a little worried that they're going to have a popcorn penguin, and we basically have no way to deal with that if they have the sliding penguin as well. I mean, maybe if we have popcorn penguin, we can and we have initiative. But anyway, so let's get rid of the Bunkus and the penguin who breaks the fourth wall. Yeah, because those two go to the ice. Okay, and then, okay, so now we have a second ascending penguin. So having the second ascending penguin is really nice because it means we can basically throw the first one out, and then, yeah, then if it survives, we basically win the game. But the thing we're missing is we're missing a Bismo. So going back to that turn earlier where we discarded the Bismo, maybe that was incorrect. So let's see. So yeah, okay, so we need to basically get a Bismo. So once we get a Bismo, I think we'll be in a very good position. Okay, the fact that they play Walk the Runway here makes me think that they don't have a popcorn, because otherwise I'm not sure they would do this. But okay, so I think we can just throw an ascending out there because we have two of them this turn. And when we play the second, right, we only need one ascending for the combo. And if the ascending lives, we can basically play a Bashful Swordsman. Oh, even better, we'll be able to oh, okay. So option one is we can play ascending with fourth wall. Okay, so I think we'll definitely play popcorn as a rod. So the question is, okay, so we'll definitely play ascending penguin. And so the question is, do we play the penguin who's okay, or do we play the penguin who breaks the fourth wall? So there's nothing from here we really want in our ice. So I think we'll play the penguin who's okay, because that will also just give them one more target to deal with. Because let's say that they do have a popcorn penguin, it'll buy a little more time. And I'm not in a crazy rush to yeah, maybe the fourth wall was good, but the fourth wall would have basically gotten 5 cards iced. Playing the penguin who's okay ices 1 card immediately because of the ascending, and then we have a few more turns. So okay, so let's see what's going on. So this is one of those games now where we can start thinking about the alternative win condition, because we really need the other Bismo. So let's see how many Bismos are left in our deck. Okay, because right, we have one here. Okay, so we have Study at Night, which is going to help us dig for the other Bismo. Um, so let's see. Yeah, so let's see how many Bismos are in our ice. So there's one. So there's okay, so there's 2 still left in our deck. So we still have quite some draws left at it, but maybe we'll ice one here. So let's see. Let's see how many in our deck. 1. So there's still 2 in our deck. So I think we will still stay on the original win condition for one more turn. So I think we can play yeah, should we play Bashful Swordsman here? That will give us initiative. And then we can, yeah, so I think we can play Bashful Swordsman. That will give us initiative. We're gonna ice down. We're gonna hopefully try to get the Bunkus this turn. Or the what's it called? We'll try to get the Bizmo this turn. Although let's see how many are left in the deck now. There is 1. So there's still 2 in the deck. The other nice thing is this gets more overwhelmed with knowledges in our ice. And so, okay, so, but we could consider trying to go for the Bunkus win condition because next turn we can basically just get all 4 of our Bunkus. Well, yeah, we can get all 4 of our Bunkus on the board next turn. So we'll go for the Bunkus win condition, I think, if we end up not drawing the what's it called? If we end up not drawing the Bizmo. But let's see first. Oh, that was a mistake. So because I should be playing Overwhelm with Knowledges first. So let me just do that just to give me more options for discarding. And I'll put the Bizmo in my ice. And the reason for that is if I do end up shuffling back with Bunkus, we'll want to have the Bizmo in our deck. So is there one other card? So I'm going to win the vibe check. So I only need 4 rods. So I can actually draw one more card. And I want as many. Do I want more options? No, let's just see how this resolves. Worst case, I'll draw 1 card after this. Okay, so we got a swordsman, which is not what we need. We got another study at night. Okay, we definitely don't need Bunkus and the swordsman. So we'll do that. And okay, so 6. So let's see how many Bismos are in our ice now. Okay, we can't see. Okay, so we'll just discard ourselves. We have to make sure not to deck ourselves. Actually, yeah, let's start doing our opponent because there's only 5 cards in our ice. So I'm getting a little worried about not having the Bismo yet. So let's see. So there's 5 cards in our ice. Okay, so let's see how many Bismos. So there's 0 there. So how many are in our ice? So there's 1, 2. So there should still be 2 in my deck. So I think if I draw, so I think I can play the other study at night. That'll draw 2 cards, and then there's going to be 3. Yeah, so there'll be 3 cards left in my deck. And so I think theoretically, this should be fine. Okay, so we got 2 Bismos. Okay, so we discard these 2. So we keep an Ascending and a Bismo. And then we will, yeah, so now we'll ice the opponent. And then we should be in a good state. So now this is really nice because we are going to win the, we're going to win the vibe check, which will give us initiative. Then we're going to just basically ice our deck down because, yeah, so we're going to win the vibe check. And yeah, then with PenguinWhoosOK, we'll finish icing our deck. Although we technically don't need it because with Ascending, you get 1 trigger from Bizmo itself. But yeah, so okay, so we have 2 cards in our deck. So then we draw a card. Now we can ice our deck fully. And now we'll just, yeah, and then we'll play Bizmo. So in this game, so here, as you can see with Bizmo, you can reorder. So you can make the icing happen first. Now, it wasn't necessary here, but sometimes that final icing does matter. So as you can see here, we basically did the just regular game plan of the deck without the combo, and we easily got through our deck. And so one thing you could see, though, as I was really struggling to get Bizmo, there were 2 at the bottom of my deck, though. So yeah, so overall, I think maybe I shouldn't have played that Bizmo Zarot earlier. But okay, so that's kind of the game plan of the deck. Like, so again, like I think there's 3 win conditions. There's the Bunkus win condition, there's the Bunkus Ascending combo win condition, and then there's just the kind of get through your deck win condition. In this game, we did the get through your deck win condition. But okay, so let's jump in the next game. All right, so looking at the mulligans, right? So we definitely keep Ascending and Brainy. And yeah, then we do a full mulligan on everything else because, right, we're really looking for those engine cards. Okay, so we got a second Ascending. So this looks like the type of a game where we'll just throw an Ascending out there and hope it sticks. And yeah, it can be a little, I'm not sure how well that's going to work because I usually have removal for 1. But then the second one sometimes can stick. And with Brainy, also, like, the other reason I really keep Brainy in the mulligan is it does help with a hand like this, where the Bunkus well, we do want to keep the swordsman actually because of ascending. So it will help us just cycle through the bunkus and maybe find some more. Yeah. So okay. So we're playing yellow. So we definitely want to. Oh, penguin who's okay. How perfect is that? Okay. So I think we'll play the bunkus. So it's going to be interesting because right, we definitely with brainy will be wanting to discard the bunkus. So I think we'll actually play the swordsman as the rod because we'll be playing the brainy next turn, and so we need at least 2 cards to discard. And I'd rather have the bunkus in my ice than the swordsman. And with this deck, you never want to give up your ascendings. So this is actually interesting because we are going to be in a situation where if we want to play brainy this turn, we end up having to discard an ascending. And I don't think that's right. So I think I'd rather just play it slower. So I'm just gonna oh, and I don't wanna lose the popcorn either. So I think I'm just going to hmm, yeah, this is very interesting. So I don't really wanna play the popcorn. I guess I'll play the bunkus as the rod because popcorn is so good against yellow. Um, Brainy is gonna be so good with Penguin Who's Okay. The bunkus as a rod is not really a problem because, when the bunkus is the rod, I can always get it back with an Overwhelm with Knowledge or a penguin who breaks the fourth wall. So, yeah, so okay, so at this point, it's like, right, I really want to wait to play Brainy until I actually have 2 cards I want to discard because all other 3 cards in my hand are super high value. Um, so I think now I might even play the popcorn actually this turn because there's already 2 good targets for it. This looks like it's the yellow, like more like the starter deck or the mid-range build. So popcorn is not really that great against this deck. So I think if you're just getting 2 targets, it's still good. So overall, definitely not how I imagined this game panning out because it's kind of this like much slower start. But I think again with this deck, because we're really trying to win with the combo, if we can just slow them down a little bit, it's more than sufficient to kind of get through the game. Also nice now that we're losing the vibe check. Also, yeah, I guess I didn't really talk about the vibe check before, but with this deck, you basically just end up losing every vibe check, which is not a problem. Like you don't like because you actually want to draw more cards. You don't really need rods. So cool. So again, we'll play Brainy first so that we can see what card we want to play as a rod. And oh, nice. So we have Bismo already. And look, we drew a special rod. So we'll play that as a rod. One other thing with this deck is you need to really be careful with the animations. Because if you play a card while the animations are still going on, the game can bug out and you can lose the game. So just be very, very careful with the animations and make sure they finish before you play anything, which is very counterintuitive because you're also really fighting with the timer. So, okay. So when we look at this situation here, um, yeah, so the question is, do we want to play this overwhelm with knowledge from our ice? So I don't really have a great turn. Well, I have ascending, but well, do I have a penguin who breaks the fourth wall? That's a good question. No. So I think okay, so I think I will play it because it is neutral on the and we'll get the bunkus because bunkus is good in the ice. So it is neutral on the what's it called? On the like number of cards in our ice because we end up icing one with penguin who's okay. And okay, so we got a fourth wall in our hand, which is not great because I'd love to play ascending with a fourth wall, but I guess I have 2 turns to get there. So I need to somehow get the fourth wall to my ice, which will be I guess I'll play it as a rod, and then I'll try to get it out with a with what it's called with a overwhelm with knowledge. So overall, this is the perfect game for this deck because it's kind of just going a bit slower and like popcorn again. So popcorn just does so well in kind of holding them back. All right, so penguin that doesn't mind goodbyes, not a huge problem because I don't really care how many cards they draw. All right, so we have 3 ascendings. So this is definitely a situation where we just throw an ascending out there. Um, and then we play a fourth wall. I could have played the Mega Penguin, I guess, to use the popcorn body, but I also have the brainy body, which is more than sufficient to use with the Mega Penguin. And this way I can actually ice 3 cards with the ascending penguin. So, all right, so it's at 14 cards. So I almost have the combo already because right with 2 ascendings you need much less. So if I play 2 ascendings, so next turn if I play 2 ascending penguins, um, then I have 14 cards in my ice, which is not quite enough because I need 12 for bunkus. So I have 2 cards left in my ice, which means I'd only ice 4. So it's not quite at like escape velocity, but we're getting there. because if you have 2 Ascendings, you probably only need like 17, 18 cards in your ice. So I think we'll play. Yeah, so what should we play this turn? We could play Mega Penguin, but we don't actually need anything. So I think I'll just probably play one more Ascending because that will just be, um, yeah. So I think as long as they don't win this turn, I should be fine, right? And I could always use no. Yeah, worst case, I would have to play a Bunkus. I think like if I needed to win the vibe check, I would play a Bunkus out this turn, but they're only at 11. So, yeah, I think we're in, like, more than fine position. So we'll just throw another sending out. Just, like, if I didn't I would never throw my final sending out in case they had removal. But, okay, so we're not gonna need the Mega Penguin. So our current plan is we're just gonna win next turn. Because with 3 Ascendings, you really don't need a lot of cards in your ice. And we'll also be drawing with 2 Overwhelm with Knowledge this turn. So, yeah, this is just over already. The only sad thing is we don't have initiative. So, right, there's a chance on their turn that they could play a misplace. But I think that's again super unlikely because it's yellow and it looks like it's more like it looks like it's pretty much the yellow starter deck. So I don't think they're going to be running misplace. So we now have, like I said, in the deck guide, you need to have like around 24 to 26 cards in your ice to do the combo. But because we are actually going to have 3 ascending penguins, we need nowhere near that amount. Even if we just had 2 ascending penguins, you could get by with around like 20 cards in your ice. But yeah, we're also probably going to have close to 24 cards in our ice anyway by the time this happens. So, but anyway, we'll go through the mechanics of the combo here. So this will be a good game to kind of show how the combo works. So, yeah, so let's see. So, yeah, so they're going to win the vibe check. Then it's going to be our turn. But yeah, once we have it be our turn, then we'll just win. We'll just win with the combo. So that'll be good. So we're gonna so this combo is gonna be very easy because we have these extra ascendings. We don't like I said, with 23 cards, we don't actually have enough to do it, to do the combo with just 1 ascending, but with 2 ascendings, it would be more than enough. So right, again, like this is what I'm saying about the game often ending like, look, this would be the turn that they would win. But instead, we're gonna win this turn. So the way we're gonna do that is, first we play ascending, then what you want to do is you want to count. So the very first bunkus you play. So right, I have 2 rods remaining. So the first one I only have to cycle 11. So I do 11 cards. So 1, 2. So I get all the what's first. 3. Then I get all spells. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, uncheck 12. Okay. So now I still have 2 cards left. Okay. So now we're going to ice a lot of cards. And so here, actually, we're going to fully ice the deck now. But even if there was cards left in the deck, we would just repeat that process. But for all future bunkus, we have to make sure to cycle the full 12. Because, right, we just need to make sure we have 2 rods left. And then the what's trigger. So, like, now you'll see the timer will reset because of what's trigger, because the timer was running pretty low. Now the timer is reset. And then we just play Bizmo. Boom. And then I think it's just good practice to always put Bizmo at the end. So I try to do that just to get in the good habits. And this is something I've talked about before in other videos. You just want to get these like micro things just really built into your habits so that when you're in a stressful situation, you're just so used to just doing it automatically. And so that's why I like pulling the Bizmo to the right of the ascending, even though in that situation it was not necessary. Cool. So that's another game 1. So yeah, let's jump into the next game. All right, looking at my hand, I got 2 card engines. So okay, so this is a hand where I would consider keeping NotaRodAnymore because I have 2 things to protect with it, but hmm, but no, I still think it's better. I think I think because I would rather still get more card engine cards, and I just want to get through the deck as fast as possible to try to get more engine cards. All right, so this is red. So this is very interesting. I've not played red with this deck ever. So, but red, I guess, doesn't have that much removal. And it's probably not running GotEm. So, okay, so what should the rod become? So I think Penguin Who Breaks the Fourth Wall is a good rod. I will pull that out later with a Overwhelm with Knowledge or another penguin or another fourth wall. So I guess maybe if I had a Brainy Penguin, yeah, if you have a Brainy Penguin, you definitely wouldn't play that as a rod. I like keeping the swordsman because ascending. So Bismo, right? When we think back to the first game, we did have trouble finding Bismo, so I think it'll be good to keep Bismo in our hand if we need to, if we can afford it. But right, there's a chance we won't. Okay, so popcorn's going to be crazy good. Okay, so what? I think what is also the least or Adventure Squad like against red adventure. Well, maybe it could be good against a peace out. So, but yeah, we're never gonna actually have the Pudge to play this. This is really just for misplace. So I think we'll play that because what the reason we're gonna hold on to what for one more turn is just in case we get a brainy or a study at night. What would be really good against that? So okay, so the popcorn penguin is going to be really good against both of their penguins. So that's going to be a good start. Um, so yeah, but okay, so we're kind of playing out yeah, playing out the standard curve. And okay, so we'll be playing Ascending Penguin and then yeah. Okay, so oh Brainy Penguin, perfect. So okay, so what cards do we not need from here? So we definitely want popcorn and ascending. So we're gonna have to use the other three cards. So we'll want yeah, Bashful Swordsman is the least important. Like I guess I guess yeah, I guess Bismo is better to have in the ice than Bashful Swordsman. So we will cycle those. Okay, so this looks like the type of game where we might be able to just win without without actually using the combo, just because we have so many of the card engines. We have two Penguin Who's Okay, another Brainy. Okay, so but we are now on ultra lookout for Bismo because we've now already gotten rid of two Bismos, and so we want to be like we can't get rid of any more Bismos. So we're gonna really be trying to get that final Bismo. And okay, so they're gonna trust fall here. I'm not sure. I guess they're just cycling it, um, just to draw another card. Okay. So we're gonna get popcorn going. Again, popcorn is really more of a distraction. Like right here, it's good. It's got a 2-for-1 on the board already. Um, I know red needs a lot of pudge, so taking out the wizard will be good. So yeah. All right. So they're yeah. So I think I'm not sure if they're building up to some combo or if they're just trying to cycle through their hand to try to get a better play for next turn. Because I don't really see this from a card advantage perspective. What they're doing is not really helping them, right? It's just going to end up, it was just all 1-for-1s. But okay, that's no problem. Does not bother me. Again, losing the vibe check is good here just because I want to get as many cards drawn because I really need to find that final Bismo. All right, another ascending. So this hand is like basically perfect. Um, and okay, so I think yeah, so when I look at this hand, right, I don't really have a good we've just got to power through the piece out. So we don't need the yeah, we don't need the bashful swordsman, I think. And okay, so the piece out is going to get activated. So we might as well send our popcorn. Yeah, I think our popcorn is good to send out here because I'd rather the piece out like we're going to have to get through their piece out. So we might as well with the popcorn at least we take out the wizard and now they'll have to use the piece out and we'll lose these two, but then we'll be stronger next turn cuz next turn we can do oh, they didn't use it. Okay. All right, well, that's not bad because then we'll get another card advantage with popcorn. Okay, so we got the Bismo, perfect. So now we're looking pretty, because all right, so 10. So we can definitely throw. Well, at this point, while the piece out is on the board, I don't really want to throw out more cards. So maybe I'm going to play this a little slower, or at least like I want to play stuff with immediate impact. Like if I played ascending, I would want to do a fourth wall on the same turn um, just so that I can get double like at least get some value from it. Okay, so run it back. So maybe they don't have an activator for peace out. So let's see. Okay, so we don't really need anything. So we could discard. Well, so okay, so this is interesting. So I don't really want to throw anything out while peace out's on the board. I definitely want to play a rod. Um, Brainy Penguin, I don't really have anything to discard. I think I'm just gonna I don't really need anything, so I'm gonna play Purple Mega Penguin as a rod, right? So keep in mind that the way the combo works is I need to have 6 rods, so I might as well get some more rods. I don't want to just throw an ascending out there because then the peace out will be able to just take care of the ascending. So let's see what they do here. So maybe they're getting a card so that they can activate their peace out. But that's okay because I really want the peace out to be gone. Um, because once the peace out is gone, then I can go set up the combo. So this would be a good example where I might do like ascending penguin into penguin who breaks the fourth wall. Um, okay, so we're gonna win this vibe check then, I guess. No, okay. Um, yeah, so I think they were trying to maybe activate their peace out, but they didn't realize that it would be flopped. I'm not 100% sure what was going on there. But either way, I think we're in a good position here. We have 11 cards in our ice. So, okay. So let's see. So this would be the type of situation where, um, hmm. So I could play Brainy, or I could just play the other. Mm, hmm. Okay. So if I played Brainy and I discarded Study at Night and what? Yeah, but I need all my cards. So I think maybe. Yeah, maybe I'll just play an ascending. Yeah, I just worry about the peace out still being on the board. But okay, I guess I have another ascending, so it's okay. So I think I'm just gonna play ascending penguin, and then I'm gonna play penguin who breaks the fourth wall. And with this, I'm going to get the other penguin who breaks the fourth wall to my ice and the overwhelm with knowledge because these are two cards that actually do something from the ice. So then this is gonna cycle 5 cards. And again, right, we're trying to get to that break point of like 25, 26 cards. Um, and so study at night, right, with the penguin who's okay, will get us one step further. Although if I use study at night, it would have been kind of better to have the second penguin who's okay. Yeah, we're going to be fighting through a lot of peace out penguins here. So I worry a little bit about that. But maybe I just pass and make him like do his move first. So then I can study at night in response. And the question is, do I want to win the vibe check? Um, okay, so yeah, they're gonna peace out. So let's see what they're gonna peace out. So I'm gonna let them like do their peace out first, and then I think I'll study at night because I think the brainy is just not happening. So the nice thing about study at night is you draw the card first. So yeah, so I think we'll play the study at night now so that the penguin who's okay triggers on the study at night because we're getting close to the break point. So yeah, so I think we just need, and we'll win this vibe check, so we'll be at 6 rods. Okay, so we definitely um yeah, so let's see. So I guess we don't really need, we don't need 2 brainies, and I think we'll get rid of the other. I guess we'll get rid of the other brainy because study at night is more guaranteed because we won't have well, because we're only gonna get 1 extra card here. So we'll keep the study at night actually. So because next turn that means we can play penguin who's okay. Um yeah, because next turn we'll play penguin who's okay, which will then and then we can play study at night with that. So I think, yeah, I'm just trying to think about because that will then get us, yeah, so we're already almost there. So we're at 26. Yeah, so maybe we could even go for the win here. Yeah, so could we go for the win here? I think we could, right? Because we're gonna win the vibe check. And then yeah, so yeah, we can go for the win. So we're gonna play study at night here just to get us down to really 28, and then we can go for the win next turn. So yeah, I wasn't even thinking about that before, but seeing how the cards played out, I guess the way they could counter this is if they use Peace Out Penguin on Penguin who breaks the fourth wall. Because if they don't win the vibe check, um, but then we'll just take one more turn. Okay. So either way, I think we'll be okay. Like we're not gonna lose the game here, but if they peace out our Penguin who breaks the fourth wall, okay, we definitely don't need Bunkus or Study at Night. Right, because we need to win the vibe check because we need to have six cards in our ice or 6 rods. Okay, so this will be the turn. So we're gonna now see, this will be good for the final game. We're gonna have like the proper combo turn. So we're at 29, which is definitely a safe amount to do it from. So again, so okay, so the way this works is we start with that, we play Ascending Penguin, and now we need to play a Bunkus. So 12, so we pick all the whats. 1, 2. So there's only 2? No, 1, 2, 3, and now all spells. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, Okay, there's no more spells, so we'll just do a Penguin Who's Okay, 12. And you can see the timer's almost running out, so we really have to hit a what here to reset the timer. So hopefully we hit a what. Okay, we hit all 4 whats, perfect. So the timer resets. You see the timer resets, and now we're down to, we can't quite win yet because I think we're gonna be at 2 cards in our deck. So then we repeat the process, we pick Bunkus. All right, we pick all the whats first to reset the timer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so now we've shuffled that in. Ascending does. This time we'll fully empty the deck. Again, do not play the Bizmo yet. Wait until the whats trigger. And there's that like weird pause there. So then the whats will trigger. Okay, and then after the whats trigger, then we're going to play the Bizmo, and then that'll be the game. Bizmo, again, reorder. Not necessary here, but good practice. Ascending 1 more card off the ice, and then we win. All right, cool. So yeah, so there you have it. Another victory for the deck. And I think we really saw this. The game we played here was the perfect win condition. And as you can see there, we had 29 cards in our ice when we went off, and it was not even close. We still had 2 bunkuses left, and even we almost did with 1 bunkus. So 29, especially if you're playing for what, is more than enough to go off. I think if you're down at, I think you can really do it with 24. So like if you're in a situation where your opponent is going to win the next turn, sometimes you just got to go and hope. So I think in the like 23 to 25 range, it's possible. 25 to 27, it's comfortable, and 27 plus, it's easy. But again, right, you saw that I was also fighting with the timer. So something else to just keep in mind is you just have to go fast, and it takes some practice. I've lost a lot of games getting in the rhythm of trying to figure out the timer. So that's another thing you just got to figure out. Thanks everyone for watching. If you like this type of content, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and to subscribe to the channel. And if there's specific videos you want me to make, please just leave a comment down below, and yeah, I'll add them to the backlog. All right, thanks everyone.